I'm Jay Horton. I make movies that make money, and this is Filmmakers On. Today, I'm talking to filmmaker Joe Bartone. This is a really informative interview. We get into how he started filmmaking kind of late in life, how he goes about developing his projects, how he goes about fundraising for his projects. There's some really good crowdfunding tips, and just some all-around good filmmaking advice in general. So, let's do the interview thing. All right, guys. So today I'm here with filmmaker Joe Bartone, who is in the middle of prepping his new movie, Everything Will Be Fine in the End. How are you doing today, Joe?
I wake up stressed every day.
Can you put it into song?
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding. No.
I wake up stressed every day.
What's stressing you out?
Well, I have been working below the line and as a music producer for most of my life. And I've only dabbled above the line. And now I am fully immersed with above the line, and also gratefully having to do the breakdown of the script and the scheduling, which for most people I think is pretty pedestrian, but for me it's the first time using breakdown software, using scheduling software, and unfortunately I don't have anyone here to teach me how to do it, so I am literally like clicking on all the buttons to see what they do, and then having to make a best guess as to, oh, that's what that does. So far I did the entire breakdown, and then in the process discovered that I had actually made some errors in the screenplay, so I had to like do it all over again, because you can't
Like formatting stuff.
Yeah, you can't just go in and fix it because it's a PDF file. So I did the whole thing all over again, which in retrospect was great. I mean, the second time I did it, obviously the elements were all listed and it went much faster, but it was daunting. I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I got to do this whole thing all over again from the beginning. So that's where I'm at. I'm really excited though, because I love learning, and I really wanted this opportunity to learn something new. Unfortunately, I got what I really wanted, which is learning a lot of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, we've known each other for, oh gosh, was it now like 10 years, about 10 or close to 10 years?
Has to be.
Yeah, I think it was 2014 when
I was,
or 13.
I was a sound guy on that amazing. You made a film about this detective.
Yeah.
Oh my God, what was it called?
It was called The Other Side with Glenn Plummer and my gosh, I'm blanking on the actors' names. But yeah, that was fun. I remember that.
You're probably not going to like hearing this, but it may have been one of the best films I've ever worked on. They didn't get much better after that, but that was a really good movie. I thought there was a lot of fun there.
Are you being serious, or?
I'm being quite serious. It was actually
that's sad.
It was a good movie, but like
no. Yeah, I'm not shitting on the movie. I'm not pissing on the movie. It was fine. I just meant
no. It was a good movie. But
that's so funny.
I liked the energy on that set. I liked how you kept everyone so positive, and you had so much passion. Oh my gosh, that I was ready to follow you into a burning building. I think that's why I started out by really admiring your work, and when we became friends, that was even better. But yeah, I remember that film.
So you've been working as a sound mixer for a while now, and you've done pretty well with it. So why the transition into filmmaking, directing? Sorry.
Well, no, that's fine. You're right. It is filmmaking. Prior to that, I recorded music and produced bands in my own group and my own music around the country and around even in Europe. But when that career kind of was unsustainable, I decided I had to find a new craft, and I wanted to produce. Originally, was produce movies. I had no idea how to do it. So I figured after I left Warner Brothers, I was there digital mastering. I said, well, I think I can apply my audio experience in film and learn the craft there. So I became a sound mixer for film as a freelancer. And I sat behind directors and DPs for about maybe 7 or 8 years before I started making my own shorts. And for me, that was just a major learning experience. It was just sitting behind guys like yourself, and Rennie Harlan, who did Die Hard 2, and some other really, wonderful directors, and a lot of directors who weren't maybe so skilled. And I had the real opportunity. It was a major education. I really, so at some point, especially after my umpteenth film with a director that maybe wasn't prepared, I said, you know what, I can do this. And I was very fortunate that my best friend, Jose Zambrano Casella, is a very gifted and award-winning cinematographer. And when I came up with some ideas for scripts, he taught me the basics of story and plot line from his perspective, which was more of an editor's perspective and a filmmaker's, a cinematographer's perspective. And that's when I really started putting it together. But that's how I got into it, was just watching and listening and learning. And then at some point realizing that I can empower myself to do those things.
What were some of the biggest like positive learning experiences, things that you learned on sets with others?
The most important thing I had to learn was, no matter how bad it's going, we are going to finish our day. And that seems pretty basic, but you have to, because it's a lot of stress being on a film set. It's 12-hour days. Sometimes out here in LA, it's in direct heat. I've spent 12 hours in degrees of up to 113 out here in LA. And it's emotionally draining. And especially if you're on a crew, that shoots a lot of days in a row in the heat, your tempers flare, your patience runs out, you become dehydrated. But you have to keep focused that no matter what happens and what goes wrong, and stuff does go wrong, you can finish your day if you just stay focused, and you just stay on it. And I have to also, a fast thing I learned, which is a really cool thing I learned. I did a film for Paramount in Dubai and Abu Dhabi with Pierce Brosnan and Tim Roth. And I was amazed to find out that it had as many challenges in completing their day in terms of logistics and lack of support as you and I experienced on a daily basis here in LA on our small budgets. It really doesn't get any better. And I'm sure at some point, if you're doing these, 30 or 40 or 100 million films, this was a $10 million film. Maybe that's different. I don't know. I haven't done that level. And once I found that out, I was really relieved, because now I know that that's just part of the game. And here's the trick. The trick is you have to know your script and your story and your team inside and out, because it is going to fall apart at some point. And you have to know it so well that you can immediately get back on track. Like, that's such an important issue. You only lose focus as a filmmaker if you're not prepared, because it is not going to go as you planned every day. And you have to have the plan so ingrained in your head that you can recover at any minute and get back on track and gain back those 6 hours that you lost.
You've worked on a wide variety of stuff. Without, naming names or throwing people under the bus, what are some of the, worst run aspects of independent films?
Yeah. In fact, I just did one very recently. Actually, I'm going to the cast party on it soon. And it's a darling film. It's a great film. But where did that one go wrong? 95% of directing in filmmaking is in pre-production. 95%. You cannot spend enough time in pre-production. Because what happened in this last film is they didn't spend every minute. They didn't know every last location, every contract wasn't in. They didn't have every last cast member contracted in. They didn't have logistics completely contracted in, and they kind of had an idea what they were going to do with it. They were confident it was going to work out, but they didn't truly have it nailed down, and they didn't give them enough time to go through all the finer details. So what happened is, as soon as we started filming, we were constantly reacting to all of the hurdles that were coming at us. We were never proacting. We were never ahead of the situation. We were always trying to patch it and fix it. And the other interesting thing is, not only did that prevent us from really being able to focus on what we were trying to do, which was a better creative work, it also cost us more money, because what ends up happening in a reactive situation, you no longer have the ability to control costs. You have to pay whatever it is that situation demands. You know, a really good example. When I was a co-producer in this one, and when I got to the pre-production meeting, and I don't think anyone's going to mind hearing this story. When I got to the pre-production meeting, my first day in the office, and this was about 3 weeks before filming. This should have already been actually sewn up by now, in my opinion. But so I'm there. I came on literally. I did some crew hiring, and the first day, 3 and a half weeks before filming, I get to the office, and there's just one girl in the office, and she was an intern. And I looked around and I said, "Well, where is everybody?" And she said, "Well, they're in Oregon shooting a documentary." Now, eventually, evidently what had happened was, you know, this company makes a lot of documentary films, and I understand it entirely. The person they were going to film this documentary was gravely ill and probably wouldn't live a few more weeks. And for this other project they were doing, it was absolutely essential they got this interview. I get that entirely. So I'm not pointing fingers here. It just happened. But what did happen in this situation for our film was, I said to her, "Well, since you're the only one in the office, you're no longer an intern. You're now the production coordinator." And then the first, you know, and so suddenly we were trying to like build up, and the first thing we dealt with were basics. What we do is we look at the locations. These are the 5 locations that we're going to talk about today. And the first thing to worry about is the most basic thing: parking, toilets. Where do we eat? Those are the 3 most important things you got to start with. Oddly enough, it's not the camera rental, and it's not everything else. Electricity is one. Just parking, toilets, and where we eat, and hopefully electricity. And I call up this first place. I said, "So, hi, this is Joe from so-and-so, and we're scheduled to work at shoot at your studio. I just want to know how many parking spaces there are, how many bathrooms there are." And they said, "Oh, well, you're not booked here." And I was like, somebody had come in and taken photographs and discussed booking it, but they never signed a contract. So then I have to call up the director who's in Oregon, and I say, "Hey, what's going on? We're not booked there." And he said, he was very flustered because he had a tough day. And he said, "Why are you worried about toilet paper?" And this is the thing I want to tell you guys. Why are you worried about toilet paper? And I said to him, because if we don't do the low-hanging fruit first, all the easy stuff, toilet paper, bathrooms, parking, food, everything else, trash bags. If we don't do that first, all the low-hanging fruit, what happens is we pile it all on the last days before we film. And then rather than focusing on the last days of prep, which are the big stuff, housing talent, getting them in, getting cranes in, all the camera gear, all the lighting, all those major friggin' parts, we can't do that because we're literally going to Target for toilet paper. So that is one good example of how something can go easily off the rails by not looking at the final details. I don't know if you agree with me, but that's really how I feel about it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you. And I know that it's really easy for filmmakers, especially newer filmmakers or even more experienced filmmakers. You get really tunnel visioned into the creative or the big decisions that you think all of the other stuff is minor. Like, I don't have to worry about that. That'll take care of itself. And then when it does not, it does not take care of itself.
No, because if you're trying to direct and someone's asking you, telling you, "Oh, we have no place to put people."
Yeah.
and they're like, that you're not focused anymore.
Oh,
And
totally.
the other thing that Woody Allen said, which is really, really important in terms of casting, he said, by the time they get to set, it's too late. Which means to say that if you don't have the right cast and they're rehearsed properly, then there's nothing you can do on set. If you start taking up gobs of time on set rehearsing people, you could be paid, you have to pay all those crews by the hour. And you have to budget it in your head, like every time you stop the camera, every time the camera is not rolling, it's probably costing you, could be anywhere between $700 to $7,000 an hour to keep everybody here waiting while you work this issue out. And in fact, it's oftentimes way less expensive to actually have 3 days of rehearsals paid with your talent prior to filming than it is to get them to set and then work the scene out when they get there.
Right.
And the other important thing too, I'll stop, just cut me in if I, the other really important thing too is getting off book is not the objective of the director and the talent, because getting off book is just the beginning of where you can investigate what's really happening within the character, with what's happening within the scene. So just because you can come in as a talent and I know all my lines, right? Let's shoot it, okay? That's not enough. That's just the bare minimum, what I like to call the minimal viable product, because good screenwriting is not about putting things on the nose. It's not saying, oh, Brad, I love you. Oh, Gene, I love you too. All right, that's friggin' easy. Anyone can write that shit. Really good screenwriting is when you don't say those things. Oh, Brad, I'm so possessed. I think about it all the time or whatever. And then it's the subtext that comes in. It's the way they say it. It's the emotions that go underneath that have to come through that dialogue. When I write dialogue, I'm actually writing one level of conversation and then directing at another level of conversation. And you can't get that by being off book because you miss it. I've seen countless times, and it's nobody's fault. Countless times that talent come in and they know the lines perfectly, they read them well, they have their own concept, and they completely miss the point of the dialogue of the story. And the thing is, they don't even know what they're saying, but they're so professional, they're not aware that that's even their problem. They can read all the dialogue down and literally have no idea what it means. And then the director goes back and says, oh, you know what? This whole thing is a subtext to this, and this whole thing this is your emotional state. It's underneath. It's not really written on the page. And then maybe they'll get it. But that has to happen in rehearsals before shooting.
One thing that I admire about your journey into directing and writing is you didn't just say, hey, I'm going to do it, and jumped right in half-assed into a feature. You did a couple of shorts first. Can you talk a little bit about the decision to do that?
Remember, because I wanted to make films when I left Warner Brothers. So I actually it took me 8 years. I didn't jump into it even from the first day. I mean, I could have easily just said, oh, I'm just going to be a producer and I'm a Mr. Producer. And I'm like, no, actually, I went, and my first jobs as a sound guy was $50 a day for like 6 to 10 hours. That's all I had, because I get jobs off Craigslist. But I was determined to learn it from the ground up. And then when I finally got to the point where I felt confident enough where I could build a short film. And for me, confidence was having enough contacts in the film industry among crew members to build a crew that I could afford that was solid, not, like really good people, and understanding how the physical parts of things come together and move, and then asking for that support and help. And then my first short, I wrote The Derailers. Well, actually, it's kind of funny. It's almost my first short. The first thing I did, let me tell you about the first film I did that nobody knows about, which is Henry IV. I'm so embarrassed. I literally wanted to turn Shakespeare's Henry IV into a web series set in modern times. And and I really did. And at that point, I had just about 2 years before the derailers, I had cobbled together a production. I had a makeup artist, some people, a camera person. I cobbled together their production for like nothing. And I found a location I could steal out in a park, and I was going to shoot it in the park. And then the person I hired to play Henry IV, we rehearsed a few times, but she would always read off she was a woman who was playing him in. She'd always read off the page. And I was so excited that I never actually paid attention to the fact that she never put the script down. And when she showed up on set, she looked at the set and it was up a hill. And she said, "I'm not walking up the hill." And there was no way to take her up the hill. But she sat in her car and she said, "I'm not walking up the hill. I'm going to go home." And then she left. And the entire production that day fell apart. And I'm so glad that happened to me. It was incredibly embarrassing. Here I am standing in front of an entire crew of people, maybe like 15 people. We had food out with everything. We had everything done. And the lead actor walked off. And that was the first major lesson. I'm so glad that happened to me. It was the first major lesson that you can't will a film into being. You can't make a film just on your energy and your charisma and your desire. It's not enough. It's enough to make a YouTube video, maybe with your iPhone in your backyard. But if you're going to make a short, it's not enough. And so when I got to the derailers, I decided, okay, what have I learned? And I reversed everything. Okay, first of all, I need a great location, all right? And then I need to write a script for that location, one I could afford. And then I need to design that location, make sure it's near my house because I need a base camp. And I literally reverse engineered a story. And the whole point of that film was to learn how to direct. I didn't even care if it was good. This is a thing I tell a lot of younger filmmakers. Your first short, whether or not it's good, is irrelevant. What is really important is that it's thought out carefully, planned carefully, and that you are learning something in the process. Because your first short that you make is your film school. Now, because I'd come off Henry IV, I was really into Shakespeare at the time. And I wrote this kind of Terry Gilliam Shakespeare-based story about a homeless guy and a supposedly dead person and a bike shop owner. And it was very kind of odd. But remember, I had just been in this whole Henry IV thing. I was obsessed with Henry IV for 3 years. Ironically, the writing was actually better than I was even paying attention to. And the ending wasn't so great. Because it's a short, by the way. Freaking shorts are the worst in terms of endings because it's either dead or drug overdose or the guy beat me up but they're always the same because there's no time, there's no art, right? So I realized that and said, well, screw it. Who cares what the ending is? So I made this thing, and the entire point of it was to have, Jason Horton, which is you, was going to be there, and Jose, the DP. I was going to use these guys and let them teach me directing. And that was really the key. Now that film went on to win awards and a lot of awards for writing, directing, for music and other. Why? Because here's the thing I was not aware of at the time. I was because of the writing and the dialogue specifically. And what happened in this instance was I had been a songwriter since I was 15. So in that point, it was, I don't know, I was like probably 45 or 50 then, right? It's probably, yeah. So, you figure like 30 years of writing songs and songwriting. And this is a message I want to send out to people that come from music, is that songwriting is dialogue, and it's friggin' good dialogue. If you write songs and lyrics and poetry, you are writing really good dialogue because you are so immensely aware of tempo and timbre and assonance and hyperbole and all the finer, more more beautiful aspects of language. And also, at the same time, you also live in a world that is very real, because you're slugging it out in clubs with the lower class and the middle class, and you're part of the lower class, you're part of the middle class, and all those struggles of youth. You're slugging it out, so you're connecting with an audience. So you know the power of how these words connect to the audience, and how delivery and how your inflection can create a whole new meaning. So it turned out that I was a decent dialogue writer, and in fact, my last script, Worst Night Ever, the last script I submitted, is a finalist was a finalist in the 2021 Bigfoot screenwriting competition, and is currently semi-finalist. We're still not done with the contest in the Slam Dance screen competition. Those are 2 of the top 5 in the country, and that is feature screenplay number 2. Number 2 that was completed. Because remember, I've written a bunch that were not completed yet. I'm still working on them. So, but why? Well, what am I? And I wrote, by the way, Worst Night Ever in 7 days. 7 days, and yet it's won a lot of awards. Why? It's because, not because I'm a lucky new screenwriter. It's because, this is out to musicians again, because I've been writing poetry for so long, and people don't write poetry anymore. And that's a shame, because poetry is really what you're trying to get in your dialogue. Even if you're writing a horror film, even if you're writing a slasher film, the moments of poetry you have a moment here where you get to say something, really truly get to say something. And there's got to be a poetic vibrance to that. Don't let those opportunities go by. Don't write dialogue that's on the fucking nose. Your audience is not stupid. They will go with you. They will understand. They can understand. Anyway, I don't even remember what the original question was, but I'm really passionate about writing. So there you go.
Yeah, no, that's great. And so you're taking all of these tools that you've learned and that you've had innately, and you're putting them into your first feature film as a director, which you're prepping right now, which is everything will be okay in the end. Everything will be fine in the end. No, it's okay. That's good. Yeah. So how are you going about putting this one together? Let's start with the financing.
SBA loans and grants I got during COVID. That's a first start. I didn't spend any of that money. In fact, when I got those loans, I was so terrified of spending money that I didn't know what it was. I never had a loan before. And I want to first start with loans. Let's just talk about SBA loans. If you have an LLC and you've been in business for a while, you are eligible for a small business association loan. Okay, so don't be scared. Don't be scared. People take loans all the time for businesses. And believe in yourself, trust in yourself. It's going to work out. It's be fine. You got to step forward with it. You got to have faith. The worst case scenario, this is the worst that will happen to you if you have an LLC or something different. Worst case scenario is, for some god awful reason, you get hit by a truck and you can't pay that loan back. The company closes. That's what's going to happen. That's it. The company closes. You got to start a new company. Maybe there may be a ding on your personal credit for a while, but that's it. Nothing horrible is going to happen. And by the way, when you get an SBA loan, you take it out, you put in your business. Let's say you can loan out for like $30,000, something small. You don't have to spend the money, okay? You can put it in your account. If you're still scared, you put it in your account, and then you can actually use that money to pay back the loan. At the very least, all you're doing there is you're just building up your credibility. So I know it's scary, because it's like, wow, I'm making a movie, and I don't know if it's going to sell, probably won't sell, probably lose money. Why would I do this? I'll tell you why. Because if you're not willing to invest in yourself, if you're not willing to put in your own money, I know you're putting in your creative sweat and all your experience, but let's talk money here. If you're not willing to put in your money, why would you expect anyone else to put their money in? That's the reality. So that's step one. Okay, step two is I did an Indiegogo campaign. And in this case, I don't know shit about Indiegogo. You know, the funny part is, Jason, you know so much about Indiegogo campaigns. If you saw how I put this together, you would just cry because I did everything wrong.
You know what? I want to stop you for 1 second.
Okay.
Because I was going to comment on this.
All right, okay, good.
Because this speaks to a larger point. Don't ever take what, you know, more experienced people are saying about a subject for gospel. Because every wrong way to do something is a right way for someone else. You know, so like when I first saw your campaign launch, I was like, oh my gosh, he is not going to. He is not going to raise a dime. He's not doing any of the things that all the you know crowdfunding experts say you're supposed to do. Because back in the day when I tried to do my first one, you know, I took a course, a $2,000 course. You know, I studied all the YouTube videos. Like I've interviewed people about crowdfunding. I feel pretty knowledgeable on the subject.
You are. You're brilliant.
But here's the truth. You can take all of that advice, do everything exactly right, and still not make it. And then on the other hand, you can do everything like your own way, go your own way, do something totally different, and that, you know, flies in the face of all the you know, proper whatever knowledge, and you can succeed with it. You know, I think it's just like success with a film and distribution. You know, yes, you can do all of these things to increase your odds of succeeding, but at the end of the day, there is an element of luck to any kind of financial success, whether it's crowdfunding or distribution. So anyway, I think you're a testament to that. Like, just follow your gut.
Yeah, so I'll give you my crowdfunding advice. And remember, this is someone that really had never done it before, so this is my first shot. But
yeah, and you're still like in the middle of the campaign.
I still have 15 days left.
Yeah, so everybody go check out the campaign.
Oh, yes, that's right. Yes. Everything will be fine in the end at Indiegogo.com. We've raised about $11,000 there.
Right.
And well, first of all, I had a director's reel. So I had cut a director's reel. I had nothing to show for this film. I didn't really even have a cast at that point, though now, of course, we do. And I did lead the cast in there. But Joe Rubenstein, my friend and filmmaker here in LA, said to me, you know, you have to make it personal. You have to make your Indiegogo personal. He said that, you know, they don't want like an autographed copy of the script with your, and they do buy them. I'm not saying they don't, with your name on it. No, They would rather have you draw with crayon a picture of a barn and send it to them. And I'm like, hey, this is the example he used. And I'm like, wow, that's interesting. He said, yeah, because people want to be part of you. They want to be part of your world. They want to have something that you physically made or that really means something to you. And I said, well, what really means a lot to me is my collection of musical instruments that I very carefully curated over the last 40 years. And I realized I'm going to sell them. Now, before you think for a minute, you know, I'm selling them. I'm selling them for more than even they're a little bit worth, to be honest with you, because I am not interested in just selling my guitar. I could do that on Reverb. In fact, on Reverb, I did sell a bunch of stuff that didn't mean much to me. And in retrospect, I probably should have done that on that too. But and I raised about $2,000 there. But I do have like the guitar I wrote all my songs on. It's valued at like 40% over market value, or the synthesizer I used to record Bride of Jesus with, up there for 20 or 30% over market value. Now, granted, these pieces will increase in value and eventually reach that point. But my thought is that if you want to contribute to me in my film, this is about making a contribution, not about buying a synthesizer.
Right.
It's not, you could buy a friggin' synthesizer and you could buy a camera anywhere. If you want to buy Jason Horton's camera, who is his personal friggin' camera that he loves, because you want to support his film, you're going to pay extra for that.
Yeah.
And that's the point. And what it also shows them is that you're really willing to risk everything to get this together. And the other thing I wanted to do was I wanted to get $10,000 on Indiegogo. But I knew I needed a lot more. And so I put it at 60. But I figured if I could just make 10, that would help because I could sell off my other gear. I have some loans from the SBA. But here's what I didn't know that does happen is now that I'm sending out these emails and talking about my Indiegogo project, I'm meeting investors, and investors suddenly say, oh my God, wait a minute. So you've got $35,000 together already, and your campaign's still going between what's in Indiegogo and what you have saved and what you've sold in Reverb and what you've sold in eBay. Like, well, maybe we could all match funds. So I'll put in 35,000 and this other guy will put in 35,000. And then now we've got $100,000, right? And I didn't understand that that's actually how it works. That's how naive I am. When you call up a producer and you say, hey, make my movie, please make my movie. If you come up with just that, he's like, but if you say, hey, make this movie and I've already put together $30,000. They're like, this guy is serious, and people respond to him. People believe in him. And so, and he's got this experience, these credentials, and he has this ability to write, and he's really charismatic. Yeah, let's friggin' go. Because you know what? In his mind, that is a safer bet. Look at it from his perspective. There's 3 guys in front of him. 2 guys with just a script. 1 guy, brand new script. All he's got is a screenwriting credit. He's a script writer. It's my first feature, my second feature, and I've never made anything. 2nd guy, hey, I've made some really cool shorts, and I got a script. And I'm really, my friends really like my shorts, and maybe even won a couple of words. 3rd guy, I have a script, I have experience in shorts, and I've got $35,000. Who do you think he's going to go with?
Right on. That's great, man. That's actually inspiring, and I'm sure like many filmmakers are watching this and they're like, oh, okay, all right, maybe I can do the crowdfunding thing, and by contrast, I helped run a crowdfunder about a little over a year ago. And I mean, we did everything by the book. I mean, there were, high-end produced pitch video. We were creating all of these that we thought were really cool perks, but there was nothing personal to the filmmaker. Right. And, I think we tried to raise, I think the goal was 40,000. We ended up around 16,000, which is nothing to sneeze at.
That's great.
But I do believe had we taken and mixed a little more of that personal tact the way you're doing right now, it would have been more successful. Actually, a partner that I work with on documentaries right now, Jeremy Norrie, he's doing a crowdfunder for a cannabis documentary we completed called The Secret Cup, which is something he's very passionate about. And he's taken a very similar tact. So, he's been in the cannabis industry for all these years. So he has all of these collector, pipes and, hats and all this stuff that's very personal to him that, he wouldn't want to get rid of. And he's doing the same thing, but, mark it up.
It's a little over market value because you're investing in his film. This is not a yard sale. This is, this is right. Right. I'm going to, because what is your sentimentality worth? What's it worth to you? And if I had more time, I would even put more items up. But here's the other thing I've been doing too, Jason, which is really fun, is I'll take an instrument that's on there and I will sing everybody's name that donated up to that point. I'll go back to the beginning and start all over again. I just read them off the page. Why? Because whether you give $5 or $5,000, that is a lot to that person.
Yeah.
I have friends. Oh my God. I have a friend. She's living in a trailer park. 2 people, my friends, living in trailer parks. They donated $10. I promise you, those $10 donations were far more valuable than the guy that wrote me, anonymous guy wrote me a check for $2,000, who's some film producer. And that really warms my heart because sometimes, because that $10, maybe they didn't need it that day, but I guarantee you 2 weeks from now that they're going to need some groceries and that $10 isn't going to be there because they donated it to my project. So I have a responsibility to make a good movie for them and to acknowledge their contribution. And that's why I think those videos I make that are really fun are just constantly thanking people are so essential.
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, my wife, she loves this one. Now she wants me to buy a bunch of postcards and write postcards to everybody, whether that contributed. And we're going to have, I guess you can do it now. This is cool, Jason. You can get custom made stamps.
Yeah.
So we're going to put everything will be fine in the end, the stamp, and we're going to put them on these posters. And I think it's really adorable.
That's a really good idea. Yeah,
and then she wants me to draw on each of them a little doodle. I'm a very bad doodler.
Yeah, no, you're a good doodler. I remember seeing you used to do that on set. That was like your thing. You was the guy that sat around and liked your little pictures, and they were always cute.
And I in fact, the animation on Brides of Jesus, the short, is all my doodling basically. I turned it into my animation, but yeah, so we were going to do that.
That's awesome. So how are you going about prepping the picture physically?
Well, the first thing is distribution. So
distribution.
I did talk to Cinema Libre. They want to distribute it, so we have that opportunity. And once one distributor is interested in your product, then that part's getting a little easier. And then it makes my head hurt thinking about all the things I'm doing in preparation. The first thing I guess I did was I blocked out an imaginary time where I could actually film it. So I chose November 10th through December 10th. I expect I could shoot this in 15 or 20 days.
So let me ask you this.
Yeah, let me help me because I'm a little lost.
So it sounds like you're doing a lot of the producer, line producer, coordinator work at this point, which is
I'm doing everything.
Which is pretty typical on a independent film at that level.
But on Monday, tomorrow, hopefully things get better. Tomorrow, I have people coming up.
Oh, cool. So you're starting to crew up, but like the script breakdown and stuff. I mean, last time I actually did a script breakdown, I think was my second or third movie. I usually let the ADs do it, but but you're having to take that on early. What? And by the way, let me talk about script breakdowns. Really, why I think it's important that the writer director should do his own script breakdown. Oh, absolutely.
This is really key. You find all the mistakes in your script if you do it yourself. If you hand a script breakdown to somebody else, the mistakes remain hidden until you friggin' get into editing. And what are the mistakes that you make? There's a thing, interesting enough, we all know about character arcs. Hey guys, there's a prop arc too. A prop arc is, in my situation, they steal a mandolin, and then a few scenes later, they're playing the mandolin, and then all this other crazy action happens, and suddenly the mandolin is just simple. I just dropped this part. What happened to the mandolin? Oh, right. Wait a minute. I never actually fixed that in the script. That was never, I just went on to the crazy fun stuff that happened afterwards. And so I caught that because I'm doing a breakdown of my script, and I suddenly realized the mandolin disappears in scene 65. I have to figure out how to fix that. Number two, you go through and you realize, oh, wait a minute here. I added this character in, and his arc just sort of like, it doesn't do this thing. If I give him these lines and move this here and then move this scene here during the breakdown, suddenly my story arc for characters is better. Doing the breakdown are the little confection flowers on the frosting of your cake. They are the last line that you have to make your script solid. And if you hand that off to somebody else, I'm not saying this, listen, if you're a great screenwriter, you don't have this problem. But if you hand it off to somebody else, you're missing all of those little flowers on top of the cake.
Yeah, you're missing an opportunity to
really tie in the details.
Yeah.
Because what is a script breakdown? A script breakdown is reading your script with no dialogue. You're just reading the action lines, right? And you're becoming intensely aware of how people and objects move through space in your story. And keying in on, that's the first time you really get to see your film in your head without the clutter of all the dialogue. You're just watching as if it was a silent movie. and you're like, whoa, hey, this is a mistake. This needs to move. This needs to be developed, etc.
Yeah. You know, to kind of wrap things up, I want to say,
oh my God, did I really go that long?
Yeah, no, I usually do these about an hour.
Okay, good.
A little under. I've been doing them a half an hour or something.
Yeah, I think a half hour is people. I think half the people have already clicked on something else by now. So
yeah, well, not on my channel. My typical retention rate on a 60-minute video is about 70%. So
I'm gonna beat that.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go for 80.
I think you might. But you know, what I wanted to say, and I genuinely mean this. You know, I've been making movies, at least 10 years longer than you, maybe 15. And just in this conversation today, like I learned so many like new things or new ways to think about things. For example, the script breakdown thing. I'm not saying I'm gonna run out and do a script breakdown.
No, it's horrible.
on my next movie, but I'll certainly consider it.
Yeah.
Because I totally that makes complete sense, and I've never heard it quite articulated that way. You know, and the other thing that I've admired about you, since you've been directing, is just how much care and time you put into prep and into the productions themselves, and I think it's something to be proud of. Sure.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm giving. I guess I'm giving myself 6 weeks. I'm not working for 6 weeks.
Yeah,
I mean 6 weeks of preparation on it, because I can't pass this off on other people. I want to. Listen, if I was a big company, I would love to, but I can't. I don't want anything half-assed. I want it to be a solid plan. Right. That's so key.
Awesome. Well, Joe, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me. Everybody, please check out the Indiegogo campaign.
Everything will be fine in the end on Indiegogo. Oh my God. If you could give $1, I'll give you a hug if I could, a COVID hug with the elbows.
Well, maybe just an elbow bump. Let's keep it
elbow bump. That's great. Yeah. And Jason, thank you so much. It's always amazing. You've given so much to the film community. And it's great because I've known you for a long time, and you're a very sociable guy, but you're kind of a quiet person. You like your space, and yet in this way you've really, despite that, you've give so much back so publicly, and you put yourself out there, and the whole point is to teach people and empower people. And not in a Tony Robbins way, but rather in like a real genuine, you know what? We're all just artists trying to make something worth watching. And that has real value. And I'm so excited for you and your channel. And I just know great things are going to happen. And I want to be the sound guy in your next film. So please call. And I love you, brother. It's great.
Keep making movies.